I'd go visit her, and one day she wasn't there. I was like, where's my baby? And I was recovering from my C-section, but driving myself to the hospital. So I, rushed to the hospital and was checking in on her, and the nurse didn't know where she was. I was like, what do you mean you don't know where my baby's at? My mom was her whole life. So she was gone a lot, and my dad was raising me. And unfortunately, I think my dad was addicted to. I was always seeing him either in pain or on pain. It was this vicious cycle where nobody played with me. I was an only child. I felt like my mom was just very jealous, and I never could open up to her about really anything. She'd use it against me if I did and go through my phone. I had no privacy. I honestly hit a point in my family life where they didn't want me around. Well, when I had my first baby, she was full term. There was no indicator that there was anything wrong. I had a pretty normal pregnancy, and I think because I was young, they tried everything, any type of persuasive language on me, putting a lot of fear into my mind. And I came in, on election night, everybody was even the nurses, just infatuated with the TV. And I think it caused my labor to kind of go bad. And my parents were there, and they're very political, and it just ruined my experience hearing all of the drama. They did everything. They popped my water, and she went into distress, and they gave me epidurals. It didn't work. She was still in distress from all of the stuff they did. They told me that my baby was going to die if I didn't go along with a C-section. They destroyed my birth. And so I ended up with a C-section. The C-section was very violating. They had me strapped to the table. There was a student there, mimicking the surgeon. And I just felt like no one was advocating for me. I was having a panic attack, and I was obviously afraid for my baby's life. They didn't show me her when she was born. It was very fast. And I was on so much different types of they were throwing everything at me. It was all a blur until I remember them saying, oh, your baby's going to go to the NICU. And I didn't see her until later that day. I went down there, and she looked like a normal baby, but she just had all these tubes connected to her, and it was really scary. My first experience with holding her was she wasn't my baby. It was the hospital's baby, and I just was so confused. I didn't understand the policies and why they were doing what they were doing. And she was there for a few days. I walked in, she was in the same spot every single day. I'd go visit her, and one day she wasn't there. I was like, where's my baby? And I was recovering from my C-section, but driving myself to the hospital to go see her. And I normally get a call from the nurses saying, hey, she, is doing well today. And I didn't receive any call. So I, rushed to the hospital and was checking in on her. And the nurse didn't know where she was. I was like, what do you mean you don't know where my baby's at? They checked the charts, and I was standing there in the middle of the NICU. I was screaming. I was livid. I remember there were some nurses rushing around, and there was no log of her in the chart. And they finally, after a few minutes, had said, we found the baby. She was over in this wing. And there was a wing that had open bassinet babies with just regular fluorescent lighting. Usually the NICU is very dark, and there's a lot of nurses. This area was a graduated area, but it was where they keep their laundry, mainly. And she was in a box on the side, not underneath any equipment like the other babies. She was just by the clothes. And I'm like, what do you mean she's in the laundry? And I was like, what is going on? This, I need an explanation. And the nurses tried to tell me that she was in between, the nurse was in between shifts or clocking out or something. And she was graduating my baby, didn't log it in the laptop. And she was in the middle of a bath and trying to get her dressed, and just, I guess, left my baby to go clock out. I was super protective of my daughter after that. I did everything I could to get her out of there. I was breastfeeding her on demand. I'm like, look, she's taking her bottles, because they were like, no, she has to be here because she has a nose tube. She has to take her bottles. She can't suck, swallow, breathe. She aspirated, I guess, because of the C-section. And so she was suffering over a bottle. And I told him, I'm like, she does so much better with breastfeeding. Why can't I just breastfeed her? I had to prove by weighing her diapers and staying overnight with her. I felt like a prisoner, you know, just to try to prove that I can get my baby out. And she was gaining weight. She had all of her diapers and they were like, okay, fine, you can take your baby. So we moved to Hawaii. That's where I got pregnant with my second baby. I wanted a different experience than my first baby. I was breastfeeding my baby in bed and she kicked me in the stomach so hard and I was like, could not get out of bed. Like I saw white. It hurt so bad, even though it was just a baby kick. I called my partner. I'm like, you got to come home from work. I got to go to the ER. Like, please take me. After doing some blood tests and stuff, a CT scan on me in the ER, they're like, yeah, looks like you have a giant mass in your rectum. It looks like cancer. And I was like, what? And they were like, we got to do emergency surgery. And it looks like if you don't, do anything, you got like 6 months to live. And I was like, you don't even know yet. Like, I didn't even have a biopsy. I was like in denial. I'm like, I don't care what you say. You're not going to coerce me into some surgery. I'm going to go home. I took a fat nap and I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm not feeling good. And so I took my temperature and it was like 102 and I went back to the hospital and that's when they told me I have sepsis and they booked me in the room. They said the colonoscopy must have punctured your bowels. And so my nightmare happened. I feel like it was on purpose because I left AMA. I took it personal. I was like, oh, are they just treating me badly because I like kind of argued with this doctor? And I don't know what the truth is, if it was truly an accident or not, but they never said sorry. They put me with a colostomy, which I felt like a monster. It's basically your intestines aren't coming out your stomach. It was literally like a 5% chance of survival. And I didn't want to tell my kids that. I was just like, no, like mommy's going to keep up. Like, we're going to do this. And I had to find a way to feed her. So I had to find a donor to donate some milk to her. And it was just, it broke my heart because I didn't even have the strength to hold her anymore, to feed her and nurture her, to finish building the house. Like, we just had to stop everything we were doing. So my recovery with everything was all over the place because the chemo was 12 rounds. And so the first 6 are before any surgery, which was like 3 months worth of chemo. And then you have like a break. And then I had a month of radiation with oral chemo. And it really wipes you out because you have periods of time where you're like feeling stronger and, better. And then you have these symptoms. Like I was having radiation poisoning. And then I had surgeries, which were pretty major. They changed my colostomy to an ileostomy temporarily so it could heal down there. And so the surgery recovery time was like 2 months. And then I had another procedure where they got the liver. The cancer had spread to my lymph nodes and liver. So to get those things removed, I had to do nuclear medicine, which they stick like radiation in your groin vein and it goes up into your liver and releases a bunch of like targeted radiation and it kills that part of your liver that's like affected and then it grows back new. I feel like my recovery for that was like at least 4 months. I was told that I was actually cancer-free in January, but my liver, they had to deal with my liver after my surgeries. So I knew I still had cancer on my liver. But after that treatment, I had another, healing time. And by September, I had a scan of 2024 that said that I was completely normal, like no cancer anywhere. My scar tissue even like resolved itself. It was the first time that I said, oh my gosh, like I don't have anything to worry about. Like I was within that 5% prognosis. Like I made it. It felt like forever. I didn't know if I was ever going to have like a normal body again, but they put me all back together. So I'm very grateful to not have any medical supplies that I have to deal with and I can just be off grid, and there's little bittersweet parts of it. Like it is what it is. It was a part of my journey and getting better, but it was not fun. As an emerging birth worker is to find the spirits in people and find ways to protect those spirits. Because just like how I was under attack during my first birth with all of these different energies, I think even just somebody walking into the room is an intervention. Like the more you learn about birth, you're like, okay, it's supposed to be really dark. It's supposed to be quiet. It's supposed to be very primal and animalistic almost. Like everything births undisturbed. So why should we, I don't want to be one of those doctors that are touching people and, inserting themselves in inappropriate ways. I think birthwork to me is taking a step back and allowing the woman to experience it herself and just being there as support and just learning from them, integrating what I'm seeing and witnessing as testimony. Well, I'm hoping that this video reaches people who need self-strength, like being your own mascot in a way. You are not ever alone, because just because the stuff that isn't showing up for you, there is so much that is. Like, there's no reason why we believe that anything unobservable isn't supporting us with love and light. I think it's the energy that you can't see with your eyes. Like, you might feel lonely, but it's the infrared, it's the spiritual, it's the vibrational. That is light and love and protection. And no matter what you're going through, even if you are in a dark room, that is protecting you. And it can be your source for so much healing. Awareness is so beautiful because it's guided by intuition, and you inside have protection. Like, you are so wise. You have to trust that voice, that is the key, I think, to just getting through anything tough, is knowing that it's everything that you can't see, and then you inside, because you can't see you see your body. But if I didn't listen, what is the point of all this? You're not performing for your parents. You're not performing for social media or you are what you can't see, and you are performing for what you don't know and what's protecting you. And I think that is the only way that I've been able to get through it.